Let's start by looking at the nameplate of the motor, and if you look at the nameplate of the motor, you will see that for low voltage, which is the way we have this hooked up, blue, orange, and red are hooked together and they go to line 1. White, yellow, and black are tied together and they go to line 2. Rotation is shown clockwise. For counterclockwise rotation, in other words, if we want to rotate in the other direction, then we interchange the red and the black leads. So we would take the red and connect it to line 2 instead of line 1, and the black and connect it to line 1 instead of line 2. Looking at the motor itself, we see that there is a wiring box here which is covered up and will remain covered up, but coming out of that box are 4 wires. The 4 wires that come out of that box, according to the nameplate, are the blue and orange wires, which are connected to the black representing line 1, and the white and yellow wires, which are connected to the white, which is represented by line 2. Additionally, there are 2 more wires in the middle here, which are the black T5 and the red T8. Looking at our wiring interface, we see that we have a slot for L1, a slot for T8, a slot for T5, and a slot for L2. And L1 and L2, of course, are the blue and orange, T1 and T3, and L2 is T2 and T4, which is white and yellow. So those are pre-wired together. So basically all we have to do is select whether we want to connect T8 to L1 and T5 to L2, or connect T8 to L2 and T5 to L1 to rotate in the other direction. As is the policy in our lab, we've created a ladder logic diagram that shows T1 and T3 being connected to L1, T2 and T4 being connected to L2, and then for clockwise rotation we have T8 and T5 also going into motor number 1. And I've also noted here that this is for clockwise rotation. For counterclockwise rotation, we simply reverse T5 and T8, and we are going to now complete those 2 setups so that you can see exactly how it is done. Okay, we are ready to go ahead and get started with our wiring. If you notice, we are locked out and tagged out. Actually, we're not tagged out, but since I'm the only one here working on this, I've decided not to put the tag in. So we are locked out. Our power supply is off. We have coming out of our switch panel, we have a black wire which is fused and a white wire which is not. This represents L1 and this represents L2. Once we make it past the fuse, we're into a bus block which allows us to wire different things off of those L1 and L2 rails. So we're going to go ahead and proceed with the wiring, and we're going to wire this up to function and rotate in a clockwise direction. So from the panel we have L1 and L2 in black and white respectively, and the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and connect L1 to the L1 terminal on the motor and L2 to the L2 terminal on the motor, which is right here. So we'll simply take our wires and stick them into the holes to start out with, because we're going to have to put in jumpers between T5 and T8 and one of these two in order to make the motor rotate in the direction that we want it to rotate in. And according to what our nameplate says, in order to rotate clockwise, we want to connect T8 to L1 and T5 to L2. So I have a pre-cut black wire, and I'm simply going to fold it in half and make a jumper right in here between T8, and I'll wedge that in there. It'll take two. You just have to make sure that there's no wires hanging out. And there we go. T8 and L1 are now connected. And we'll take our little screwdriver and tighten up our connections, make sure they're nice and snug. Kind of push the wires in as we go. There we go. That's what we wanted. Okay, so now we have a jumper that connects T8 to L1. The second part of this will be to go ahead and put L2 and the jumper wire into the L2 slot. We'll go ahead and tighten that up a little bit. So we're ready to go. Twist these wires and make sure they don't fray. We'll go ahead and connect that into the T5 jumper. And I did not tighten up my other wire quite enough. That's one thing you have to watch with this, is making sure that your wires are connected, and I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a second. So we're going to redo this one. As a matter of fact, I'm going to recut this, making sure that anything that comes off of there goes away from the motor. I'm going to restrip that wire so I have a fresh start at it. Don't be afraid to do that. It's better to do that than to have a risky connection. And we're going to go ahead and push both of those in, and once again we'll tighten up our screw, get these guys together. Let's check and make sure everybody's tight, and we are. Now let's review. L1 connected to the L1 terminal and jumper to the T8 terminal for clockwise rotation. L2 coming into the L2 terminal, jumper to T5, also a requirement for the clockwise operation of this motor. So we've checked our wiring, everybody's tight, everything is connected. We'll double check our ladder logic diagram and our nameplate and make sure that everything is correct before we continue, and we will power this up here shortly. Now let's go ahead and reverse direction from clockwise to counterclockwise, which simply involves exchanging T8 and T5. So all we need to do is loosen up these guys right here. Take the black wire and the white wire out of the two center ones. We'll kind of dress our leads a little bit. Go ahead and put the black wire into T5. And we'll put the white wire, L2, into T8. Check our wiring, pull on everything, even check the ones that were wired before. Vibration is not our friend, so we always want to make sure that everything is tight every time we set this up. And we are now ready to go ahead and fire up the motor in the counterclockwise direction.